Perilous. I'm Dr. Brian Scott. We're studying the insight to end times. Where are we on God's timetable? Today we're dealing with the 7th verse of 2 Timothy chapter 3, where Paul writes Timothy and tells him in these last days, perilous times are coming. Verse number 7 in that chapter says, always learning, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. I've termed this sign information overload. I've done some research just to help you get a handle on this or an understanding. And we know that the average North American consumer today, or person today, consumes 5 times as much information on a daily basis as was available 50 years ago. But let's put it into some perspective. And I don't mean to bog you down, but first of all, in computer language, a byte, B-Y-T-E, is essentially one character. So the letter A is one character, it's a byte. The first category is called a kilobyte. It contains 1,024 bytes. That would give you about 2 to 3 paragraphs of information, a kilobyte. Then we go to a megabyte. A megabyte is 1,024 kilobytes. Because of that, we have roughly 1,048,000 bytes. That would translate into 873 pages of plain text, or 4 200-page books. So a megabyte is a pretty large number. It's 4 200-page books. The next level up is called a gigabyte. A gigabyte is 1,024 megabytes. So you take the 1,048,000 bytes in a megabyte and multiply it by 1,024, and that gives you roughly 895,000 pages of plain text, or 4,473 200-page books. Now we're talking a massive library. Imagine 4,473 200-page books are contained in 1 gigabyte. The next level up is called a terabyte. And a terabyte is 1,024 gigabytes. That translates into 4.6 million 200-page books. Wow, now we're talking a massive library in a terabyte. Then we have a petabyte. I hope I'm not boring you, but a petabyte is 1,024 terabytes. So you can imagine we're now into like a trillion 200-page books. Let's see here, million, billion, 4.7 trillion 200-page books. After a petabyte, we have an exabyte. And an exabyte is 1,024 petabytes. So now we have 4.8 quadrillion 200-page books. Are you quadrillion? Who ever heard of a quadrillion? Here's what a quadrillion is. It's a number 1 with 15 zeros behind it. Now here's why I'm sharing that with you. And it keeps going. Then we have a zettabyte and so on and so forth. But let me blow you away with some information. I know this will take just a little longer than the normal podcast. In 2020, network traffic was exceeded 3 zettabytes a day. A day. That turns into, over the year, but that turns into 1 gigabyte. Remember, a gigabyte is 4,473 200-page books. That means that's a gigabyte per day per person in the world is being downloaded over the internet. That was in 2020. A gigabyte, 4,473 books per person per day. Internet traffic is growing at 26% a year. In the 4th quarter of 2021, that's just a few months ago, the download from the internet was 84 exabytes. 84 exabytes. That's 961 quadrillion pages of text. That's the number 961 followed by 12 zeros. Now here's why it's interesting. They have estimated if they took every word spoken by every human being from the beginning of time to the current date, all of those words spoken would only be 5 exabytes. And in 1 month, the monthly download was 84 exabytes. That's 17 times as much as all the words ever spoken. What am I saying? We're in a time of information overload on steroids. It's a massive sign of these end times. The internet's growing at 26% a year. We can anticipate it getting even worse. And the verse says, always learning, always having access to all kinds of information, but never coming to the knowledge of the truth. We're sharing some truth with you here that we're getting close to the end. See you in our next podcast. Thanks for joining us. Bye now.